thing in the woods started stalking us. It was just past midnight when I heard it for the first time. A faint rustling, almost like footsteps, circling the edge of our campsite. I opened my eyes and looked over at Alex, who was lying stiff in his sleeping bag, staring wide-eyed at the trees. His breathing was shallow, barely a whisper above the cracking embers of our fire. "Did you hear that?" he murmured, voice trembling. I nodded, my throat too tight to answer. We sat up slowly, peering into the darkness, trying to convince ourselves it was just a deer, or maybe a raccoon. But the sounds were too careful, too deliberate, as if whatever was out there knew exactly where we were. Then, just as quickly as it started, the rustling stopped. Silence filled the air again, thick and oppressive. We waited, our ears straining, but there was nothing. Alex exhaled, his shoulders relaxed as he mumbled something about going back to sleep, but I couldn't shake the feeling that whatever had been there was still watching us, lurking just beyond the reach of our firelight. By morning, the fear had faded, almost like a bad dream that didn't quite stick. The golden sunlight trickled through the trees, painting the forest in a warm glow that made everything seem safe again. Alex and I exchanged uneasy smiles as we packed up our gear, shrugging off the strange sounds from the night before. Maybe we just psyched ourselves out. It was easy to let the dark play tricks on your mind. We decided to take the Oxear Ridge Trail that morning. Known for its sweeping views and jagged cliff face, the trail felt like the perfect way to ground ourselves, to let the beauty of the gorge erase the eerie feeling that lingered. We hiked along the narrow path, laughing off our shared paranoia, enjoying the crunch of leaves underfoot and the crisp autumn air. As we reached a clearing, we stopped to take in the view. The gorge stretched out below, a stunning cascade of fiery red and deep greens. For a moment, it felt like we'd escaped whatever darkness had brushed against us last night. But as we continued up the trail, a nagging feeling crept back in. The forest was too quiet. No birds, no wind, just the sound of our footsteps echoing through the trees. As we rounded a bend, the trail dipped back into a dense stretch of woods, and the comforting sunlight faded under the thick canopy. Shadows stretched long across the ground, and a chill prickled my skin. I tried to shake the feeling creeping up my spine, but then I heard it. A faint stirring in the leaves, not too far off. I stopped, grabbing Alex's arm. "You hear that?" I whispered, my voice barely steady. Alex paused, listening, then shrugged, giving me a reassuring smile. "Probably just a deer or maybe a fox," he said, squeezing my shoulder. "This place is full of wildlife. Don't worry." I nodded, but something about the sound felt wrong. As we moved on, I kept glancing over my shoulder, catching the barest hints of movement in the distance. The rustling started again, closer now, and it seemed to follow us, stopping whenever we did and picking up again when we walked. Whatever was out there, it wasn't just passing through. It was following us, and every step sent a fresh wave of dread down my spine. After another hour of hiking, we came up on a shallow natural cave, a perfect spot to set up camp for the night. The rock face overhead offered some shelter, and the area felt secluded. Alex set off to gather firewood, while I unpacked our gear, arranging our things to make the space as comfortable as possible. As I finished unrolling the sleeping bags, I heard leaves rustling somewhere in the distance. Assuming it was Alex on his way back, I went back to my work, but the footsteps sounded strange, light, almost fleeting, like something or someone was darting through the trees. Then, as suddenly as they started, the footsteps broke off, disappearing into the silence. Moments later, Alex emerged from the opposite direction, carrying another bundle of wood. He was whistling, completely unfazed. My heart lurched. Whatever had been moving out there, it hadn't been him. "Hey, is everything okay?" he asked, noticing my expression as he dropped the wood by the fire pit. "Alex, I heard footsteps," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "Just now I thought it was you, but it was coming from the other direction, and they ran off right before you got here." He raised an eyebrow, glancing over his shoulder into the darkening woods, then back at me with a reassuring smile. "Sarah, it's probably just an animal. This place is full of them. You're spooking yourself." I shook my head, my hands fidgeting as I tried to explain. "No, it was different, Alex. It sounded like someone was following us. First on the trail, now here." My voice cracked and I could feel my pulse pounding. Alex stepped closer, putting a hand on my shoulder. "Hey, look at me," he said, his voice calm. "It's just us out here, okay? I'll keep the fire going tonight. Whatever you're hearing, I promise you, it's nothing that can't be explained." But even as he said it, I could see a flicker of doubt in his eyes. As the firelight danced across the mouth of the cave, the shadows seemed to stretch just a little too far. After we finished our meager dinner, Alex tended to the fire, piling a few larger logs into the embers to keep it burning through the night. The warmth and steady crackling sound, along with the clear star-studded sky above us, calmed my nerves. Slowly, I drifted off, the tension of the day slipping away as sleep took over. I don't know how long I'd been asleep when I felt a hand shaking my shoulder. My eyes flew open, and there was Alex, wide-eyed, whispering urgently. "I heard something," he said, barely above a murmur. "It sounded like sticks breaking, just over in the trees." He pointed to the edge of the campsite, his voice tense but steady. A chill swept over me, and immediately my mind flashed back to the rustling footsteps I heard earlier. Every nerve in my body was on high alert as I sat up scanning the dark edges of the trees. Alex had his flashlight, its beam cutting through the darkness, darting back and forth as he listened, peering into the shadows. For a moment, it was silent, except for the crackling of the fire. Then, just beyond the circle of light, I thought I caught the faintest rustling, barely there, like something moving through the underbrush but trying to stay hidden. My heart raced, my breath coming quick and shallow. Alex and I exchanged a glance, and in his eyes, I could see he was no longer dismissing it as just an animal. Something was out there. "Stay here. Keep the light steady," Alex whispered, gripping one of the smoldering logs from the fire. He flicked his flashlight on, nodding towards the edge of the woods. "I'm gonna get close, see if I can catch it off guard." My heart pounded as I held my flashlight steady on the spot he'd been pointing at, illuminating the edge of the trees. Alex slipped down the hill quietly, moving just at the edge of my light's reach. I could barely make out his figure as he neared the trees, and then, in one quick movement, he stepped into the shadows. Suddenly, there was a loud rustling, and whatever had been lurking there bolted deeper into the woods. Alex turned his flashlight back on, its beam bouncing wildly as he sprinted after it. My light caught a flicker of movement, just for a second, but it was enough. I saw a figure barely visible, dressed in dark, earth-toned clothing, vanishing into the trees. "Alex, stop! Come back!" I screamed, my voice cracking. But he didn't even turn. He kept chasing, his light flashing sporadically through the dense trees, growing fainter with each step. I strained to listen, my breath held tight, but after a few moments, his footsteps faded into nothing, leaving me alone with only the sound of my own heartbeat echoing through the silence. The wait felt like an eternity, each second stretching longer than the last. The forest was silent, the fire crackling softly beside me. Then, finally, I saw it. Alex's flashlight, a steady beam cutting through the darkness, aimed directly at me. Relief washed over me at first, but it quickly faded when I realized he wasn't saying anything. He just kept walking, the light fixed on me, growing closer. "Alex, this isn't funny," I shouted, my voice wavering. I could feel tears stinging my eyes. A sense of dread clung in my insides. The silence was suffocating, and the flashlight beam remained fixed on me, unyielding, as if studying me. Then, just as my fear began to tip into panic, the light flicked off. I blinked, my vision swimming in the sudden darkness as my eyes struggled to adjust. Shadows danced across the edge of the firelight, and the trees seemed to close in around me. My breath hitched, my chest tight with fear as my vision finally cleared. And then, I saw it. The figure standing there, just barely visible in the fire's dim glow, wasn't Alex. The shape was wrong, too tall, too still. It loomed silently and unblinking, watching me with an unnatural intensity. My blood went cold as I realized it wasn't my friend who had come back. My hand shook and I stumbled back, every instinct screaming at me to run. But I couldn't tear my eyes away from that dark figure, rooted in place by a terror so profound, it left me paralyzed. I sat frozen, my mind racing but my body locked in place as the figure lingered just beyond the firelight, a silent hulking shadow. Every part of me screamed to run, but the darkness surrounding us felt too vast, too full of unknown horrors. And the thought of what it might have done to Alex helped me there, gripped me in a kind of terror that swallowed me whole. The creature then lowered itself, crouching down, its face finally catching the glow of the fire. My stomach twisted as I took in its features. It wasn't a man. The face staring back at me was stretched and elongated, more animal than human, with a dog-like snout covered in thick dark brown fur. And those eyes, two sickly yellow orbs reflecting the firelight with an unnatural glimmer. Realization hit me like a cold slap. The brown I'd seen earlier wasn't clothing. It was fur. This thing had never been human. Horrified, I turned over, yanking my blanket up to my chin, curling in on myself as if it could somehow protect me. I lay there, trembling, waiting for the inevitable, the lunge, the sharp pain of claws or teeth, but nothing happened. The creature just stayed there, crouched, watching me in silence. Time seemed to stretch, every second feeling like an eternity as I shook under my blanket. My breath shallow, my mind on the edge of breaking. But still, it didn't move. It just stayed there, keeping its vigil over me, as if it had all the time in the world. I squeezed my eyes shut, trying to erase the creature's face from my mind. But those eyes, the sickly yellow glow, piercing and unblinking, were seared into my memory. It sat there for hours, crouched just at the edge of the firelight, watching me in a silence that felt like it was consuming me whole. Every second stretched and twisted, each heartbeat feeling like it could be my last. The terror was so intense, I thought it might kill me right there in the darkness. I lay there, shaking, clutching the blanket as if it could protect me, my mind spiraling in endless fear. But the creature never moved. It just stayed there, its eyes drilling into me, studying me with a patience that was somehow worse than anything it could have done. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, I heard it shift. My heart hammered as I listened to it stand, its massive form looming in the dim glow of the fire. For one awful moment, I thought it was coming towards me. But then, slowly, it turned, and I heard its heavy footsteps fading away, each one feeling like a small mercy. Only when the forest returned to silence did I dare open my eyes, my heart still racing as I stared into the empty woods, too afraid to move, too numb to comprehend that I'd survived the night. I stayed curled up, clutching the blanket, listening to every small sound, every crackle of the dying fire. It felt like hours before I finally worked up the courage to turn around, to face the space where the creature had crouched, watching me. I slowly lifted my head and looked over my shoulder. It was gone. The sun was starting to rise, casting soft light through the trees, a light that felt like salvation. I let out a shaky breath, feeling my whole body beginning to release the terror that had gripped me. That thing, whatever it was, had kept me frozen in terror for over 4 hours, the longest, most horrifying hours of my life. The moment the forest was bright enough, I scrambled to my feet. I didn't even bother with the campsite, leaving everything behind as I bolted down the trail. My heart pounded, adrenaline surging, and tears streamed down my face as I ran. I didn't look back. I couldn't. All I knew was that I had to get as far away from that place as possible. Branches scraped my arm, and roots snagged my feet, but nothing slowed me down. The fear pushed me forward, every step taking me farther from the nightmare I'd somehow survived. As I tore down the trail, my vision blurred by tears, I suddenly stumbled upon a pair of hikers making their way up from the direction I'd come. The sight of other people, real human people, nearly broke me. I collapsed before them, trembling, my body giving in to the weight of the fear and exhaustion. The hikers rushed over, their faces etched with alarm as they knelt beside me. They asked me what had happened, if I was hurt, but I couldn't speak. The terror choked my words, the images of the night still too raw, too vivid. I sat there gasping, trying to steady my breathing until finally, the lump in my throat loosened enough to speak. Something attacked my friend Alex, I whispered, my voice barely audible. The hikers exchanged a look, a mixture of concern and disbelief, but they didn't question me. One of them offered me a bottle of water, and after a few moments, they guided me back down the trail. Every step felt like agony, my body heavy with the shock and fear of what I'd endured. It took 2 hours to reach the parking lot. 2 hours where I glanced back over my shoulder, more times than I could count, fearing that I'd seen those sickly yellow eyes watching me again. When we finally reached the lot, I climbed into my car, my hands still trembling as I gripped the steering wheel. Without a second thought, I drove straight to the nearest police station, the fear still fresh in my mind as I prepared to file my report. After filing my report, the officers exchanged weary glances before one of them asked me to accompany them back to the campsite. They didn't say it outright, but I could see in their faces they didn't believe a word I said. To them, I was just some distraught girl, maybe imagining things after a traumatic night. But despite their disbelief, they agreed to look into it. An officer escorted me back through the trail, my heart pounding with each step. When we reached the campsite, I showed them where Alex had gone into the woods, and the spot where I'd last seen him. The officer looked around, taking notes, his face carefully blank. He finally nodded, saying that they'd open an investigation into Alex's disappearance, but I could tell by his tone that he didn't expect to find anything. As he escorted me back to the parking lot, my eyes darted constantly to the surrounding trees, every rustling leaf and shadowed branch sending a fresh wave of dread through me. I half expected to see that creature lurking, watching, waiting to strike. But the woods remained still, eerily quiet as we walked. When we finally reached the lot, I climbed into my car, forcing myself to breathe, to focus. The officer gave me a final nod and a reminder to call him if I remembered anything else, but I barely heard him. The moment I could, I turned the key, pulling out of the lot and driving home, my hands gripping the wheel so tightly, my knuckles turned white. All I could think about was Alex, lost somewhere out in those woods, and the thing that had taken him. The call came the next day. I could barely bring myself to pick up, a sick feeling twisting in my stomach as the officer's voice came through the line, calm and practiced. They found Alex's body at the base of a cliff. He said it was a long fall, and that Alex's body had been badly mangled on impact. I felt numb, the words barely registering as I listened. My mind raced back to the creature I'd seen, its yellow eyes glowing in the firelight, the way it had stalked us through the trees. I tried to tell them again, to make them understand that what had happened to Alex wasn't just a fall. I told them about the monster, about how it chased him into the woods, but they dismissed it just as quickly as before. The officer's tone was sympathetic but firm. People die out there every year, he said. The cliffs are steep and, at night, it's easy to lose your footing. He wouldn't believe me. None of them would. To them, Alex's death was just another tragic accident, a case closed. But I knew the truth. Something had hunted us, something that drove Alex over that cliff. As I hung up, a hollow feeling settled in my chest. I was left with a terrible certainty that the monster in those woods was still out there, lurking, waiting for whoever was unfortunate enough to cross its path next. Breaking the news to Alex's parents was one of the hardest things I'd ever done. His mother's face twisted with grief as the words left my mouth, and she collapsed, sobbing, unable to bear the weight of the loss. His father just stared at me, his expression dark and accusing, as if he somehow thought I was to blame. I couldn't find the words to defend myself, not that they would have helped. I had been there, and Alex hadn't come home. That was all that mattered. Since that day, I hadn't been able to set foot on a trail. The thought of being out in the woods again sends a shiver down my spine, and even the sight of the forest from a distance makes my skin crawl. I can't sleep either, not peacefully. When I close my eyes, I'm back at the campsite, under that cruel bright moon, with the creature crouched just at the edge of the firelight, staring at me with those sickly yellow eyes. Sometimes I lie awake, wondering why it let me go. Why didn't it finish me off when it had the chance? The question gnaws at me, but I know I'll never have an answer. All I know is that it's out there, waiting in the dark, and no one will ever believe me. I hadn't seen my grandma in 3 years. My mom and I moved across the country after the divorce, and we didn't have the money for a plane ticket. At least that's what my mom claims. I think it's just because she hates my grandma. Well, funny how her attitude magically changed when her boyfriend presented her with plane tickets to Costa Rica. "Ava, your grandma's so much fun. She'll teach you how to knit, she'll teach you how to bake butterscotch cookies. She's the best." She did warn me about something, though. Her mind has gotten bad, my mom told me. She has trouble remembering things, recognizing people. Is she gonna be okay? Yeah, but just be patient with her, okay? And if she seems really out of it, call Mrs. Dempsey down the street. I put her number on your phone. Okay. But you're gonna have a great time, my mom said, plastering on a smile. It's going to be wonderful. 2 days later, I was getting off at Pittsburgh Airport. Funny how my mom said I was too young to go to the diner alone with Shireen. The world is a dangerous place for a 13-year-old girl, her words. But she had no problem sending me off on an airplane alone. My grandma wasn't great with cell phones. She didn't pick up when I called, but as soon as I got to the pickup line, I saw her silver Subaru Outback at the curb. Grandma stood beside it, smiling widely. "Grandma," I said, running up to her. She didn't open her arms to hug me. She just stood there, looking down at me. "Grandma?" "Hello, dear," she said, after a pause, as if just noticing me for the first time. "How have you been? I'm so happy to see you." Then she opened the car door and gestured me inside. The car smelled like old person smell. I'm sorry that's mean, but it's true. I crinkled my nose as I pulled on my seatbelt, and she drove us back through the city, out into the Pennsylvania countryside. "Get comfortable, dear," Grandma said, as she led me inside. The house looked the same like it always did, a little stale, a little outdated, but also oddly comforting compared to the minimalistic style of my mom's house. I glanced at the needlepoint hanging in the foyer of a large pitcher of lemonade. "Make yourself at home. You can eat anything you find in the fridge or pantry," she told me. "Oh, except I almost forgot. I do have one rule. The basement is off limits." "Why?" "It's a little dangerous down there, dear. Wouldn't want you to get hurt." I frowned. The basement had never been off limits before. It was finished on one side, and she had a bunch of board games and a sofa down there. I liked hanging out down there. It was the only place that didn't smell like old people. "It wasn't dangerous before," I protested. "Well, it is now," she said, in a significantly firmer tone. Then her smile went right back on, and she asked me, "Would you like some butterscotch cookies?" "Yes, please." My mom was right. Grandma was kind of fun. I helped her with the cookies, and she told me she'd send me home with the recipe. I did some reading and talked to my friend Shireen on the phone. Then it was bedtime. Tall and thin, Grandma looked like a ghost as she paced down the dark hallway to her bedroom. "Night-night," she said, poking her head out as she gave me a wave. "Good night, Grandma." Her blue eyes glinted in the darkness. Then the door snicked shut. I fell asleep quickly, despite the bed that was a little too soft and the loud cricket outside my window. I woke up with a start, however, and looked at my phone to see it was almost 2 a.m. My throat was parched, so I headed out to the hall bathroom to get some water. As I walked across the hallway, I noticed Grandma's bedroom door was open. And as I looked harder, what the hell? Grandma was sitting on her bed in her nightgown, staring out into the hallway, head tilted slightly, blue eyes glinting in the darkness. I stopped in my tracks. Grandma? Was she smiling? "Grandma?" "Ava, is that you?" she called out. No, she wasn't smiling. At least not anymore. "Yeah, it's me," I replied, my voice wavering. "Why are you up?" "I thought I heard something," she replied. "So I was just sitting here to make sure it was nothing." I got my water, feeling unsettled. When I got out of the bathroom, Grandma was poking her head out of the doorway again, waving. "Night-night." "Good night." The next day when I asked her about it, she didn't even seem to remember the interaction. "I don't remember being up," she said, looking at me. In the sunny light filtering through the window, she looked much less scary. White hair tied back, with a silver barrette, pale wrinkled skin, tired blue eyes. "You saw me up?" "Yes," I said firmly. "Huh." She rose from the seat, still in her nightgown, and shuffled towards me. "Would you like pancakes this morning, Allison?" My heart sank. Allison was my mom's name. "Ava," I corrected, following her into the kitchen. "Right, of course, Ava." She shook her head. "You're just a spitting image of her when she was your age. The dark eyebrows and the curly hair." She shook her head again. "It's like going back in time." She made the pancakes in silence, the tines of the fork hitting the bowl. Another egg glooping in, cracked eggshells set by the counter. A sharp sizzle as the viscous batter hit the cast iron pan. "I have chocolate chips I can add," she said, rifling through the counter. "Oh, wait. These expired a year ago." "It's fine," I told her. After breakfast, I thought maybe we'd play a game of go fish like the old times or take a walk. But Grandma had other plans. "I'm afraid I'm feeling rather tired," she told me. "Is it okay if I go rest and you just hang out here?" "That's fine. I brought my Switch," I told her. "Video games." "Oh, okay. That's nice. Well, get me if you need anything, okay?" I nodded. I found myself surprised that I was disappointed. I thought I didn't miss all of those things we used to do. Boring things like playing cards or walking. But I did. Whatever. I'm here for the whole week, I told myself, going up to my room. I booted up my Switch and started playing Pokemon. A few hours went by. When I got hungry, I went back down to the kitchen, but Grandma still wasn't around. I hope she's okay, I thought. I poked around the fridge and found some leftover chicken, dated 2 days ago. I popped it in the microwave and sat down to eat. I'd only been eating for a few minutes when I heard it. A scuffling sound, coming from the basement. I got off the couch and walked towards the basement door. She told me not to go down there. What was down there then? Rats? An illegal exotic pet? Yeah, right. The scuffling sounds continued. I pressed my ear to the door, and then I heard it. "Help me," spoken in my grandma's voice. Every muscle in my body froze. She must have gotten trapped down there. Maybe she fell down the stairs. That's why I hadn't seen her for hours. I undid the deadbolt and swung the door open. "Grandma?" I called. The lights were off, but from what little I could see, it didn't look like she was laying at the bottom of the stairs. Thank God. "Grandma?" I called again, louder this time. "Help me." Hands grabbed me from behind and yanked me forcefully back. The door slammed in my face. Then my grandma was in my face, her eyes wild. "I told you not to go into the basement," she shrieked, so loudly my ears rang. I heard you down there," I said, my voice trembling. "No, you didn't," she snapped back, her face twisted in this awful, vicious expression of anger I'd never seen before. "I'm right here. I was upstairs laying down when I heard you calling for me. There is no one down there." But I heard you," I said, tears starting to prickle my eyes. She just shook her head and walked away. For the rest of the day, Grandma sat in the living room, knitting. Every time I passed by the basement door, her eyes followed me. I started to feel incredibly uncomfortable. When I went up to my bedroom to talk to Shireen, I could hear footsteps outside my door. She was trying to be as quiet as possible. Her footsteps were slow and light, but I still heard them. When I came down for dinner, Grandma was all smiles. She served a dish of warm lasagna, cheese melty and gooey on top, smelling of garlic and onion. "Thanks," I said. It felt like she was trying to make amends for yelling at me. But when I sat down to eat it, she just stared at me. "Aren't you gonna have some?" I asked, hovering the first bite next to my mouth. "No, it doesn't fit my diet. This is just for you, Allison," she replied. "Ava," I snapped back. I set the fork down. This was feeling all kinds of weird. I stared at my grandma's face, a chill going down my spine. Her blue eyes were so intense, so cold. She seemed so different from 3 years ago. "What kind of cake did you make me for my 9th birthday?" I asked. She tilted her head, staring intently. "I don't remember, dear." "You spent all day on that cake. Of course you remember." Her mouth became a thin line. She paused. "I don't remember." "What's my birthday then?" I pressed. She blinked. "It's October, isn't it?" "September 14th. "I'm sorry, dear," she said finally, breaking eye contact. "I don't remember things as well as I used to, and I mix up names and words. It's not because I don't love you." I stared at her, and then I forced a fake smile. "I know, Grandma. I love you." Then I got up from the table and started up the stairs. "You haven't finished your lasagna, dear." Grandma's voice came from the bottom of the stairs. "I'm not hungry," I called back. I hadn't taken a single bite. "I think my grandma's a skinwalker," I whispered into the phone. Shireen gasped on the other end. "What?" "She doesn't remember anything about me. I think she's keeping my real grandma locked away, down in the basement." "What?" I heard her voice, calling for help. A heavy sigh. Shireen was not the superstitious type. "Are you sure you heard her voice from the basement?" "Yes." "What are you gonna do?" "I'm gonna go down there," I replied. "Tonight." "Maybe you should just wait for your mom to get back. My grandma could be dead by then. Maybe you should call the police. What if my grandma tells them I'm a liar, that I made it all up? Are they going to believe her or a 13-year-old girl?" "I still think you shouldn't go down there." "Well, I'm gonna." "Okay, well, give me your address or something. If you don't call me back, I'll call the police." "Good idea." I gave her my address. She tried to talk me out of it for another 10 minutes, and then I hung up. Then, I swung the door open and crept out into the hallway. Silence. Darkness under Grandma's, not Grandma's door. I was safe. I tiptoed down the stairs and walked over to the basement door. Then I waited for a few minutes to make sure not Grandma wasn't following me. Silence. I slowly, quietly, slid the deadbolt. Then I swung open the door, creaking slightly on its hinges. I winced, hoping that didn't wake her up. No scuffling sounds, no voice calling for help. Maybe she's already... I swallowed the thought and started down the stairs. The light didn't seem to work, but I had my phone with me. The flashlight illuminated each step beneath me. I slowly made my way down when my feet hit the cold concrete bottom. I swung the light around, and all the blood drained from my face. Sitting on the floor, chained to a support pole, was my grandma. Her head hung limply in front of her, white curls hanging over her face. "Grandma!" I called, my throat tightening. "I hope she isn't already..." Grandma lifted her head. The phone fell out of my hands. Her face. There was something horribly wrong with her face. Pure white eyes, a wide smile full of pointed teeth, skin that seemed to slough off her face in patches, revealing bone underneath. No, 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 no. A horrible cracking sound filled the air. I watched in horror as the thing transformed. Bones twisted and contorted. The face opened its mouth in a silent scream. And then, I was staring at myself, chained to the post. White eyes fading to match my brown ones. It cocked its head. "Hello," it said in a voice that matched my own. I let out a scream. And then Grandma, real Grandma, from upstairs, not this horrible thing, was grabbing me and shoving me up the stairs. The door slammed shut and I found myself on the floor, panting, looking up at her. "What did I tell you? Don't go into the basement." "What?" "Grandma," I choked out. She double-checked the door that it was locked, then led me into the kitchen. "That thing showed up a year ago," she told me, as she pulled out my leftovers, now congealed piece of lasagna from the fridge. She draped a thin blanket over my shoulders and sat down across from me. "At first it took the appearance of an old friend of mine. I let it in. I fed it, not just food," she said, glancing down at the lasagna in front of me, still uneaten. "It started eating my memories." "How?" "I don't know how, but I found myself forgetting simple things. Names, dates, birthdays. And then one day, I woke up to the thing looking just like me. I don't think it was aware that I would not respond well to a person looking exactly like me.
I tricked it into the basement by pretending to relive a memory of the basement being a very important place over and over again. It eventually ate that memory and went down there. I locked it in. With the help of someone I met online, someone who believed me, I was able to chain it to a post, and I kept it there so it couldn't hurt anyone else. I stared at her. If you knew you had this dangerous thing in your basement, why did you let me stay here? I missed you, and I foolishly thought you'd listen to me. Scuffling sounds came from beneath us, and then I heard my own voice, reverberating through the floor. Help me! Get back down here and help me! Will it eat my memories too? I whispered. No, it needs physical contact for that. Our talk was interrupted by 3 short knocks on the door, and that's when I realized I never called back Shireen, and couldn't, because my phone was at the bottom of the basement stairs, down there with it. I'll take care of this, I told her, getting up from the kitchen table. Thankfully, the police bought my tale, and because I didn't let them in, they didn't hear the clone of me screaming in the basement. Then, I used Grandma's old computer to send Shireen an email. There's still the matter of the thing in the basement, of course, but that's another problem for another day. For now, I'm going to eat some lasagna, and then go straight to bed. And Mom was right. My grandma is fun. I used to think the Mammoth Caves was just another adventure, a tick off of our list. It was supposed to be a fun weekend to explore the shadows with my best friends, to test our nerves in the endless dark. But somewhere down there, under miles of stone, something went wrong. Now one of us is missing, and I swear, I can still hear him calling. We've been going on for hours, our voices echoing through the tunnels, each one mocking the confidence we had when we started. There was me, Sam, and my friends Luke, Jared, and Ben. Ben was always the daring one, the first one to wander ahead, the one who'd get us into trouble just to laugh it off. But when he didn't come back, no one was laughing. It's strange. We retraced our steps, searching every crevice, calling his name until our voices scraped raw. Nothing. Just an endless silence, heavy and swallowing. And then, the faintest echo, like Ben's voice, drifting from somewhere deep in the shadows. Luke was the first to hear him calling. He stopped dead, his hand shooting up as he walked, telling us to listen. We froze, straining against the thick silence. "Did you hear that?" he whispered, his voice barely louder than a breath. None of us had, but as we stood there, letting the silence settle around us, we heard it. A faint, distant call, almost swallowed by the stones around us. It was Ben's voice, unmistakably. He was calling out, the sound barely reaching us but bouncing off the cave walls in strange warped echoes. The direction was wrong, though. The call wasn't coming from where we'd last seen him. It was coming from one of the tunnels we haven't even traveled down. But maybe, somehow the paths were connected. It wasn't impossible for cave tunnels to intersect. We were probably about 2 miles down at this point, so deep that the silence felt alive, closing in around us. The chill in the air seeped into our bones, and every breath echoed back like a reminder of how far we'd come. The walls felt tighter here, the space around us shrinking with each step. Our lights casting shaky beams on the rough stone, cutting through just enough darkness to keep us moving. We packed extra batteries, sure, but even with the supplies, an uneasy feeling twisted in my gut. Still, leaving wasn't an option. Ben was down there somewhere, and we couldn't just abandon him in the dark. We walked down a few hundred feet, calling out Ben's name into the dark, then waiting in silence, hoping for any kind of response. The cave swallowed our voices, leaving only the faint drip of water somewhere far off. Then, after what felt like ages, we heard him. It came from behind us. "What the fuck?" Luke whispered, his voice tight and shaky, eyes darting back towards the path we just covered. Jared, louder than any of us, shouted back, "All right, Ben, you can stop messing with us now, man. This isn't funny, bro." I wanted to believe it, that Ben was just messing with us, hiding in some shadowed nook and waiting to jump out. But as I stared into the empty tunnel behind us, a chill crept over me. I couldn't shake the feeling that somehow it wasn't really Ben. We backtracked, our light slicing through the shadows as we searched every inch of the area. We moved slowly, scouring every nook, every crack in the walls, but there wasn't a single trace of Ben. Not a footprint, not even a scuff mark. He was just gone. Eventually we returned to the central cavern, slumping down on the cold stone to catch our breath and regroup. I told the others what had been gnawing at me, the dread curling around my thoughts, but Luke was quick to brush it off. "Oh, come on, man. You know Ben's just messing with us," he said, his tone forced, like he was trying to convince himself as much as me. "Well, how did he end up back here then, when he was down there before?" I shout back. "I'm telling you guys, something isn't right." Before anyone could answer, Ben's voice echoed again, faint but unmistakable. This time it came from the tunnel we'd seen him go down first. "Come on, guys, this way." His voice drifted down the rocky corridors, a lazy drawl that somehow felt wrong. Jared sprang to his feet, shouting down the tunnel, "Screw you, Ben. When I see you, I'm going to beat the crap out of you." Then, we heard it. A low chuckling laugh, the sound echoing but from a completely different tunnel. Luke and Jared exchanged glances, the bravado draining from their faces. It was like the air had thickened, and now they felt it too. Something was off. A chill crept over all of us, setting in our bones as Ben's laughter faded into the shadows. We huddled together, whispering hurriedly about what to do. The idea of leaving came up quick, but Luke shot it down fast. "We can't just leave Ben down here, guys," he insisted, voice firm but edged with unease. Jared shook his head, glancing towards the distant exit. "I'm going. I'll call the police and tell them that our friend's missing. I'll come back with the search party." It wasn't a bad idea, honestly. Part of me felt relief at the thought of professionals with equipment and experience. But Luke wouldn't budge. His jaw set, determination in his eyes. He wanted to keep looking, convinced that Ben was close, just around the next corner. Jared didn't wait for more argument. With a last look back, he took off down the path towards the exit, his flashlight bouncing along the walls until he was out of sight. Luke and I stood there in silence, the weight of the decision hanging heavy between us. Eventually, we decided to search a little longer. Just a little longer, we told ourselves. After Jared disappeared from sight, Luke and I ventured down the same tunnel Ben had vanished into. We called out, voices barely steady, and after a moment, Ben's voice drifted back, faint and distorted, like it was caught in a slow echo. The sound seeped out of a dark, narrow crevice ahead, just wide enough for us to squeeze through. We moved cautiously, each step slower than the last, feeling a prickling sensation on our necks, like unseen eyes were watching us from the shadows. The path bent sharply to the right, creating the illusion that I might loop back towards one of the other tunnels. Luke forced a chuckle. "See? He's just messing with us." But as we rounded the corner, our lights caught something that made us stop dead. A jagged hole yawned open in the middle of the path, wide and deep, cutting off the tunnel. The space was too narrow to walk side by side, so I trailed behind Luke as we edged forward and aimed his flashlight down into the darkness below. Luke went silent, his light fixed on something I couldn't see. I waited, the quiet pressing in, until the tension grew unbearable. "What is it?" I whispered, trying to peer around him. When he turned to me, His face was drained of color, eyes wide, lips parted like he couldn't quite find the words. He swallowed, barely managing to get it out. "He's down there," Luke said, his voice trembling. My blood ran cold. "What do you mean?" I stammered, heart pounding against my ribs. "He's down there, Sam," Luke whispered, voice cracking. "Dead." The words hit me like a punch. I stood there, numb with disbelief, until Luke grabbed my arm, his grip almost painful. "We have to get out of here," he said, voice tight with terror. Without another word, we turned and started back, moving fast but steady, our lights casting frantic beams along the rough stone walls. As we reached the tunnel that led back to the central cavern, another voice echoed through the darkness. "Guys." Neither of us paused. We broke into a sprint, feet pounding against the ground, breaths ragged with panic. We didn't care where it was coming from. We just wanted out. In his haste, Luke stumbled over a jagged rock and fell hard, his flashlight skidding across the ground before shattering into pieces. I stopped, reaching down to pull him up, my light sweeping the wall as I moved. And that's when I saw it. A figure, pale and naked, crouched at the far end of the tunnel, watching us with hollow, empty eyes. It looked almost human, but something was horribly, horribly wrong. "Oh my God," I muttered, my voice barely a whisper, trembling as I stared at the figure. Luke turned, catching sight of it, his face twisting in terror. He grabbed my arm, jolting me out of my daze. "Come on, Sam," he urged, pulling me forward. We didn't look back, rushing through the darkness, desperate to put as much distance as possible between us and whatever that thing was. Every shadow felt like it was closing in on us, every echo stretching our nerves tighter. As we reached the main tunnel that led out of the cave, we saw a figure lying on the ground ahead. Jared. He was sprawled face down, motionless, his flashlight lying a few feet away, casting an eerie glow on the stone. "Oh God," I breathed, heart racing as we knelt beside him. He must have tripped, maybe knocked himself out in a rush to get out. But when we turned him over, the breath left my lungs. His face was unrecognizable, crushed and bloodied, as if something had beaten him down, over and over. The horror of it froze us in place, and I could barely think, only feel the cold grip of fear sinking deeper into my bones. That's when we heard it, a voice drifting from the shadows, but this time, it wasn't Ben's. It was Jared's. "Come on guys, this way," the voice called, soft and taunting. I swung my flashlight towards the sound, heart hammering, and there it was, standing just beyond the light's reach. Pale, humanoid, but wrong in every way. Its skin was chalky, almost luminescent under the beam, and its eyes, solid black, empty and endless. The thing stared at us for a moment, then turned, its movements jerky and unnatural, and ran down the tunnel, laughing in Jared's voice, a sick, twisted echo of the friend we'd known. "What the hell?" Luke whispered, voice barely audible over my own pounding heart. He grabbed my arm, his grip trembling. "We have to get out of here, man." I didn't need any convincing. We bolted, feet slammed against the stone. The darkness stretched ahead of us like a maw, ready to swallow us whole. As we ran, the creature's footsteps echoed close behind, its pace relentless. My heart pounded, my breath coming in ragged gasps as we pushed forward. Suddenly, Luke stumbled and fell, hitting the ground hard. I skidded to a stop, spinning around, and that's when I saw it. The creature had caught up to him, gripping his leg and starting to drag him back into the shadows. Luke clawed at the ground, his face contorted in terror. Without thinking, I shone my flashlight directly on it, and as the beam hit, the creature shrank back, raising its long bony arms to shield its huge black eyes. It couldn't stand the light,
That much was clear. I stepped towards Luke, light fixed on the creature as it hissed and retreated, slipping back into the pitch-black depths of the cave. We backed away slowly, both of us trembling, the silence around us settling like a heavy weight. We kept moving, trying to keep our steps steady, though every nerve in our body screamed to run. Luke fumbled in his bag, pulling out his spare flashlight, and now with both beams cutting through the shadows, we scanned every crevice, every dark corner around us. The creature was silent now, but its presence clung to us, a feeling so thick it was hard to breathe. We both knew it was still near, lurking just out of sight, watching and waiting. Minutes stretched on, each one more suffocating than the last. But then, just as panic threatened to take over, we saw it. The cave entrance. A sliver of remaining daylight spilling in, piercing through the darkness like a lifeline. It was so close, a beacon of hope after the nightmare had nearly swallowed us whole. We made it, or at least we thought we did. Step by step we edged closer to the exit, the sunlight drawing us in, so close I could almost feel its warmth. But just as we reached the final stretch, the creature dropped down from above, a blur of pale skin and black eyes, crashing onto Luke and sending him sprawling to the ground. I whipped around, frantically aiming my light, but it was too late. In an instant, the creature pinned him down, smashing his head against the stone with brutal force. Paralyzed for a split second, my mind screamed at me to act, to do something. But instinct took over. I turned and ran, abandoning Luke's final, muffled cries, leaving my friend behind. Tears streamed down my face, blurring my vision as I pushed myself forward, barely seeing the light ahead. When I finally burst out of the cave into the fading daylight, I collapsed on the ground, gasping for air, chest heaving and the weight of loss crashing over me. The tears came hard, unstoppable, as I lay there shattered, knowing I was the only one who had made it out. As I forced myself to stand, steadying my breath, I heard it. Luke's voice, faint and choked with fear, calling out from the depths of the cave. "Sam, please, help me." I froze, every instinct screaming at me to ignore it, to remember what I'd seen, to remember that Luke was gone. But hearing his voice, broken and desperate, twisted my insides. The guilt clawed at me, sharper than any fear. I had left him. I had abandoned him. The pleading continued, soft and relentless, each word pulling at the frayed edges of my sanity. Some part of me wanted to turn back, to run into the dark, convinced he was waiting, that I could still save him. But another part, a colder, darker part, knew the truth. It wasn't Luke. It was the creature mimicking his voice, sinking its claws into the last thread of hope I had left. And yet, what if somehow it really was him? The thought tore at me, leaving me stranded there, helpless and shattered, unable to move forward or look back. Finally, I forced myself to turn away from the cave, each step heavier than the last. I had to leave. I had to get out and tell someone what had happened, no matter how impossible it all seemed. But as I reached the edge of the forest, the realization settled in. I couldn't tell them the truth. They'd never believe me. No one would. I could already picture the looks of doubt, the whispers, the judgment. So I rehearsed the lie as I stumbled into town, every word twisting in my throat. I told them we were stalked by someone in the cave, that he'd ambushed us, attacked Jared and Luke. I described a faceless killer lurking in the dark, hunting us down one by one. It was easier that way, easier than trying to explain the unexplainable. They listened and they wrote it all down, but even as I spoke, a chill ran through me. In the back of my mind, Luke's voice still echoed, pleading, calling me back into the dark. The cops didn't let it go. They pressed me for hours, asking the same questions over and over, watching my every reaction. Soon enough, they began talking to my friends and family, probing into my relationships with the group. I could see it in their eyes. They suspected me. I was the last one out, the only one who had made it back, and my story didn't add up. They searched the cave for days, combing through every passage, every cavern. Eventually, they found Ben's body, crumpled at the bottom of the pit, limbs twisted at unnatural angles. But Luke and Jared, they were gone. Their remains were never recovered. And now, when I close my eyes, I still see the darkness of that cave, hear the echo of their voices, distant and pleading. No one believes me. And maybe, after all of this, I'm not sure if I even believe myself. The only thing I know for certain is that I'll never step foot in another cave for as long as I live. The thought alone makes my skin crawl, my heart race. The darkness isn't just unsettling to me now. It's a living, breathing terror, wrapping itself around every corner, every shadow. I'm afraid of the dark in ways I'd never imagined, paranoia gnawing at me every time I turn off a light. Even here in my own town, I can feel it. The creature's gaze, lurking just beyond the glow of my lamp, hidden in the pocket of darkness, patient and unyielding. It's waiting for me. I can feel it, lurking, watching, waiting for the one moment when I'm left alone in the dark. And I know deep down that it won't stop until it pulls me back into the shadows, just like it did with them.